This is GARIS Masculist MGTOW flyers. That is 2 3-page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 65, entitled Female Absorption of MGTOW/Masculist Ideas. Description. This flyer anticipates how women will behave a few decades from now towards a male population which has had its MGTOW/Masculist consciousness raised, that is, made aware of female hypergamous, genetically programmed nature. Flyer itself. Female absorption of MGTOW/Masculist ideas. Jump ahead a few decades from now. Imagine that nearly all men have absorbed MGTOW/Masculist ideas, that these ideas are just part of the culture, part of general knowledge. Imagine also that women have also absorbed these ideas and know that men have absorbed them, and that women have been forced to adapt to men who have absorbed these ideas. The interesting question then arises from our current standpoint, that is, in which only a minority of men have absorbed these ideas, that almost no women have absorbed these ideas, given that the MGTOW/Masculist movements are only now just getting off the ground. How will women behave towards men a few decades from now? A man who has had his MGTOW/Masculist consciousness raised, aka also known as a red pill man, will be far more cynical of women than a more naive man, aka blue pill man, who thinks that women actually love men, rather than loving only men's exploitability by women. MGTOW/Masculists expect women to be hypergamous, that is, these men expect women to see men merely as exploitable checkbooks, and hence will have a lower regard for women. Men don't like being seen as success objects by women, and want to be respected for their abilities, their personalities, and not merely as providers of resources, money to females. Ad-libbing here, a hypergamous female wants to marry up. She wants to mate with a male who has superior socioeconomic status. In other words, superior genes that she wants for her kid to have a superior kid. And that makes perfect Darwinian evolutionary sense. Back to the flyer. Assume also, jumping ahead in time, that women know that most men share this lower regard of women due to their hypergamy. How will women react? Women will be forced to suppress their instinctive impulse to judge men merely by men's exploitability. Women will have learned that if they do express their true genetically programmed female nature of vaginally wetting at the prospect of catching a resource-rich male, then they risk losing that guy, because he will be well aware of female hypergamous nature and be contemptuous of it. I am living through this kind of experience myself, and dialogue with my current wife, my fourth, about it. She's not a stupid woman, being a professor. I am too, so when I met her, I used to call her my sexy scholar. But I live in China. I tried to persuade my then university president to make the city I live in the artificial brain center of China, and told him that Westerners would not come to it until China democratized. A few months later, I was fired and blacklisted from working at any other Chinese government-run university. So suddenly I was rather poor. Worse was that my previous Chinese wife, who was much more of a fluffy, I then discovered, had stolen half my savings. I naively gave her admin control of my savings of 4 years at the peak of my earning capacity as a full professor. I discovered after we separated, due to my growing awareness that she was just a lazy middlebrow who lied to me that she was going to get a PhD. I suspect the whole relationship from the start was just a ruse of hers to extract big money from a Western professor so that she could travel internationally, etc. I tried to get my money back via the courts, but Chinese law, to the extent that it is independent of CCP, Chinese Communist Party, control, which is little, has a policy of preferring Chinese citizens in such disputes, plus the fact that she was the daughter of a general who was on the Long March with Mao, enabled her to use hefty guanxi, string pulling, cronyism, corruption, to ensure she kept the money she stole from me. You can see why I have such a hatred of fluffy parasites and the CCP. But I still had my American pension fund nest egg, which would go 6 times further in China than the US due to the lower Chinese cost of living. So I decided to retire in my early 60s rather than the usual age for professors in the US in their 70s. Being retired allowed me to start what I call ARCing, A-R-C, after retirement careering. I decided to become a globicator, global educator. I had read that the average published research paper was read by only one other person. This shocked me. So I wanted to do something as an ARCer that would be far more significant. So I began to make YouTube lecture course videos in PhD level pure math and math physics, plus build electronic libraries of books on these topics for the world to educate itself for free at PhD level. Since the time I wrote this, 1-2 years ago, Google has been putting up large numbers of links to full text, full content books, which has made my job hugely more significant. So I tried as far as possible to put links to full content books, thousands and thousands of them for students. So students around the world will be able to study for free at PhD level. What a revolution. After a year or two, my fit, sexy wife began to show her true hypergamous colours. All she saw was that I was now rather poor, and that she had more money than I did. She was definitely a FIP. After the previous parasitic wife, I made very sure to avoid fluffy Chinese women. But even a FIP wife is still female and will have a hypergamous, unconscious, genetically programmed attitude that men are only sexually desirable if they are exploitable by women. As one feminazi bitch put it on a t-shirt, no Rolex, no sex, meaning that if the guy is not rich, she won't want to fuck him. I tried to tell my fourth wife that she should have a lot more respect for me and treat me better than she does. I told her that I was the superior person to her in many respects. For example, she doesn't have a PhD. I do. She has published 30 papers. I publish 150. I've written 7 books and get on the media and movies regularly. She's a lecturing associate professor. I was a full research professor, etc. This intellectual and performance superiority I have over her did not matter to her. She's a female, and females want resources from men to find them sexy. I have to live with this for a while until I get my green card. After that, I will make a choice. Does the companionship I get from her outweigh the condescending attitude she has towards me regarding my lower financial situation? Things are complicated a bit by the fact that she's still ending her menopause, so her mood swings are not over. When she is PMS, premenstrual syndrome, moody, she becomes a divorceable asshole for a few days each month. So this woman may very well lose me in the next year or so. She may pay a very heavy price for her hypergamy. 40% of women over 40 in the US live alone. A lot of them have been forced into that position by men who have left them. My fourth wife is a bit fat and mid-50s, so according to my Chinese lawyer from first Chinese divorce, 60-year-old Chinese women who are single have almost zero chance of finding another husband. He told me that such Chinese women are invisible to Chinese men. I tell my wife this, and it shuts her up for a few weeks until the next mood swing. So, I use my own situation to generalize what may happen when large numbers of men become conscious of women's hypergamy and simply reject it. Men in their 40s and above are much less cunt-driven than younger men, and will increasingly decide to earn less, thus becoming less attractive to women as a result, and thus have more free time to do what they love. So these men will be trading pussy for self-fulfillment. When women are faced with millions of men who look down on female hypergamy and choose to earn less, who choose to be less of a manslave to women and do their own thing, then women will have to adapt to this. Men will accuse women, hypergamous parasite, go rot on the shelf. Women will have to learn to keep such deep-seated attitudes to themselves, because if they express them, then they know that men will react very negatively towards them, because men in the future will be very well informed about female hypergamous nature. Men will put enormous pressure on women to be FIPs, and will, in a sense, be hyperandrous towards women. If a woman is not a FIP, then a man who has had his MGTOW/masculist consciousness raised will not go near her. He will say, I'm not going to be manslaved by a bloody fluffy. Fuck him. Or rather, someone else can fuck him. Or better still, no one will fuck him. If a woman does not FIP up, then I will be as hyperandrous to her as she is hypergamous to me. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de GARIS. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. YouTube channel name, de GARIS Masculist MGTOW Flyers. Ciao.